I spent 22 hours in labor holding the cold metal frame of a hospital bed, breathing through contractions while my husband's phone went straight to voicemail. I thought he was stuck on a business trip, desperately trying to race home for the birth of our first child. I was wrong. While I was delivering our son alone, Evan was at a luxury resort in Miami, sipping cocktails with his 24-year-old assistant. 2 weeks later, he finally strutted through our front door expecting to find a tearful, desperate wife waiting to forgive him. Instead, he stepped into a dead silent, completely stripped home. The crib was gone. The furniture was gone. All that remained on the kitchen island was a single framed photo of our newborn son, resting face down next to a sealed envelope. Evan thought he was returning home to a broken woman. He forgot that before I was his wife, I was a staff sergeant in the Ohio Air National Guard, and I don't break under pressure. My name is Elena Fox. I'm 29 years old, and I serve in logistics for the Ohio Air National Guard. In my line of work, everything is centered around precision, accountability, and preparation. You plan for every contingency, verify every detail, and never leave your flank exposed. For 7 years, I brought that same discipline to my marriage with Evan. He was an ambitious corporate regional manager who lived and breathed status, high-end suits, and the constant pursuit of looking successful. In the beginning, our differences balanced us out. My grounded mindset kept us stable while his drive pushed us forward. But over time, Evan's ambition turned into an obsession with appearances. Subtle red flags began popping up everywhere. Unscheduled late-night meetings, a brand new password on his phone, and a quiet resentment toward my military commitments. He started dismissing my service as a distraction from his corporate lifestyle. I brushed off the distance, convincing myself he was just stressed about our future. After all, I was 6 months pregnant with our first child, and I believed we were building a life together. What I didn't realize was that while I was planning a nursery, Evan was already planning his exit strategy. The contractions started at 2 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday, 3 full weeks before my due date. Sharp, rhythmic waves of pain surged through my body, signaling that our son wasn't waiting any longer. Evan was supposedly 800 miles away in Florida on an urgent, non-negotiable client retreat that he insisted could not be rescheduled. Dripping with sweat, I dialed his cell phone. It rang 4 times before cutting straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. Nothing. For the next 22 hours, I lay in a dimly lit hospital room, clutching the cold stainless steel railing of the bed. Every time a contraction ripped through me, I closed my eyes and leaned heavily on my military training, focusing on controlled breathing and mental endurance. I kept telling myself that Evan was stuck on a plane or trapped in a dead zone, frantically trying to race to my side. I refused to let myself believe he would willingly abandon me. Then, at 9 p.m., while the nurse was adjusting my IV, my phone buzzed on the bedside table. It wasn't a call from Evan. It was a text from a close friend in base intelligence, containing a single screenshot. It showed a public Instagram post uploaded by Evan's 24-year-old corporate assistant, Vanessa. There he was. Evan was lounging poolside at a 5-star South Beach resort, holding a cocktail with one hand and his arm wrapped tightly around Vanessa's waist. The caption read, "Unplanned long weekend with the best boss ever." While I was screaming through labor alone, he was on a luxury getaway with his mistress. A cold, surgical clarity settled over me. The pain of betrayal vanished, replaced instantly by resolve. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I looked at the screenshot, saved it to a secure drive, and prepared to handle business. The day I was discharged from the hospital, holding my newborn son in my arms, I didn't drive home to cry into an empty pillow. Instead, I drove straight to our base legal services office. In the military, When a crisis hits, you don't panic. You assess the terrain, gather intelligence, and secure your assets. I sat down with Captain Reynolds, a sharp, no-nonsense JAG attorney who specialized in high-conflict family law and financial fraud. Within 48 hours, Captain Reynolds and his team uncovered the full, disgusting scope of Evan's betrayal. Evan hadn't just been cheating, he had been systematically looting our life. Over the previous 8 months, he had siphoned over $60,000 from our joint savings to fund luxury trips, expensive jewelry, and a high-end apartment lease for Vanessa in downtown Columbus. He had even taken out a fraudulent personal loan using our joint assets as collateral, assuming I was too distracted by my pregnancy to notice. He thought my military background made me predictable and easily outmaneuvered. He was dead wrong. Captain Reynolds helped me draft an emergency ex parte motion, securing temporary sole physical and legal custody of our son due to spousal abandonment. Next, we secured an immediate court-ordered emergency freeze on all primary bank accounts and marital assets to prevent him from draining another dime. Finally, because the lease on our rental home was in my name, I exercised my legal right to terminate the contract effective immediately. Operation Empty Nest was officially greenlit. Evan was still down in Miami, completely oblivious, living on borrowed time and frozen credit. It was time to clear out. With our legal strategy firmly in place, it was time to execute the physical move. On a crisp Thursday morning, 3 trucks from my Air National Guard logistics unit pulled into our suburban driveway. 8 of my fellow Guard members, men and women I'd deployed with and trusted with my life, stepped out, ready to help. We operated with absolute efficiency, treating the house like a tactical teardown site. Within 6 hours, the house was stripped clean. We carefully packed every single item that belonged to me, along with every single nursery piece purchased for our son. The crib, the rocking chair, the hand-painted wall art, the miniature clothes. All of it was systematically loaded onto the trucks. We even removed the custom drapes and room rugs I had paid for. I left only what Evan had brought into the marriage: his clothes, his personal gadgets, and a few pieces of mismatched furniture he had owned before we met. My unit helped me relocate everything to a secure private townhouse on base housing. With gated security and full military access protocols, it was a sanctuary where Evan couldn't barge in or cause a scene. My baby boy Lucas was tucked safely in his new nursery, completely protected from the storm that was about to hit his father. Before leaving the old house for the last time, I walked into the completely bare kitchen. The bare wooden floorboards echoed with every step. I walked up to the kitchen island, the exact center of the empty house, and placed a single framed photograph of Lucas face down on the granite counter. Next to it, I set a crisp white envelope, sealed tight. The trap was set. 2 weeks after he left for Miami, Evan finally returned, completely oblivious to the hurricane waiting for him. He pulled into the driveway expecting to find a tearful, exhausted wife, desperate for his help and ready to forgive his prolonged absence. Instead, he unlocked the front door and stepped into total silence. The sound of his polished dress shoes echoed off the bare, stripped hardwood floors. The living room was completely empty. No sofa, no television, no rugs, no wall art. Confused and rising with panic, he rushed upstairs toward the nursery, expecting to hear the soft cries of his newborn child. He pushed open the door only to find a hollow, white room. The crib, the changing table, the soft blankets, everything was gone. It was as if a family had never lived there at all. Frantic now, his heart hammering in his chest, Evan sprinted back downstairs to the kitchen. Standing in the middle of the barren room, his eyes locked onto the kitchen island. There sat the single-framed photograph resting face down next to the sealed white envelope. He lunged forward and grabbed the frame, his hands trembling as he turned it over. It was a picture of our son, born healthy and strong while he was lounging poolside in Miami. Taped to the back of the frame was a handwritten note in bold black ink. "What you're looking for is on the back." Beneath the note was the sealed envelope. Evan ripped it open, expecting a dramatic breakup letter. Instead, his face turned deathly pale as he pulled out the official court summons, emergency temporary custody orders, and an immediate asset freeze notice from the state of Ohio. At the bottom was a direct instruction from Captain Reynolds. "Do not attempt to contact Elena. Direct all future communications to legal counsel." Within minutes of opening that envelope, Evan went into a full-scale panic. His calls flooded my phone, but every single one bounced straight to my lawyer's automated voicemail. Desperate to regain control, he hired a high-priced civilian attorney, instructing him to launch an immediate counterstrike and threaten me with full legal retaliation. He was convinced that a soft-spoken guard sergeant could be easily intimidated into submission. 3 days later, we sat across from each other in a sterile courthouse conference room for our emergency motion hearing. Evan entered the room with his usual arrogant smirk, flanked by his lawyer. But that smirk evaporated the moment my legal team laid our evidence on the mahogany table. Captain Reynolds didn't just bring standard divorce filings, he brought a mountain of military-backed financial forensics. We presented bank records detailing the exact funds Evan had embezzled from our joint accounts, hotel receipts from Miami, and signed lease documents proving he had been paying for Vanessa's apartment. As Captain Reynolds systematically laid out the paper trail of spousal abandonment and financial fraud, I watched Evan's lawyer turn ghostly pale. He leaned over, whispered frantically in Evan's ear, and immediately withdrew their motion. The dominoes fell fast after that. With his bank accounts legally frozen, Evan couldn't pay the credit card bills funding his lavish lifestyle. Within 2 weeks, Vanessa packed her bags and abandoned him the second the luxury dinners and free apartment vanished. To make matters worse, news of his financial misconduct reached his corporate office, prompting an internal audit that put his high-paying career on life support. The polished image he had traded his family for was completely destroyed. 6 months later, the dust finally settled. The court awarded me full physical custody of Lucas, substantial child support, and full financial restitution drawn directly from the liquidation of our marital assets. Evan was left with a wrecked credit score, mountain of legal debt, and an empty corporate reputation he couldn't buy his way out of. As for me, I received a promotion to Master Sergeant, continuing my career in the Ohio Air National Guard with my head held high. Living in our peaceful townhouse on base, I spend my evenings watching Lucas take his first steps on a warm, secure rug in a nursery filled with love. I learned that true strength isn't about enduring betrayal, it's about having the courage to execute a clean break and build a better life from the ground up. You don't let anyone treat you as an option when you are capable of commanding your own destiny. If you were in my shoes, would you have left the house completely bare? Or handled things differently? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to mention what city you're watching from so I can see how far Lucas and my story has reached. Thank you for watching.